in glorification of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Just stop for a minute and think what that means, that on the spot he was able to compose the verses. It wasn't that he went back somewhere and did it in his office and it took him several weeks. We were talking with Radhika Raman Prabhu, and he told us about a professor that he had who was a throwback, and he had grown up in a very Suffolk environment and learned Sanskrit. He was a Vaishnav. He was at the university teaching Sanskrit. He learned under that professor. And that Sanskrit professor had come in contact with Prabhupada's books and then had gained so much appreciation for them that he wanted to write 100 verses in glorification of Srila Prabhupada. And Radhika said he kept going to him during the semester because he said he would do it, and he hadn't started yet, but he was determined that he was going to do it. At least he said he was. And right during the last week before the semester was over, he started and he finished composing all those verses, many of which, or several of which, Radhika Raman Prabhu read to us. They were very beautiful glorification of Prabhupada, very appropriate, and the Sanskrit was beautiful, or at least it worked for me. And it was in the context of thinking about how it was even possible for somebody to be able to compose verses on the spot. There's a different era. Holiness Indraduna Maharaj tells about once when he was at Radhakund and he had come around a corner and he had bumped into somebody, a sadhu actually, who had a young assistant with him. And Maharaj had begged forgiveness, as we do when we bump into somebody. And they started a conversation, and the young man was telling Indraduna Maharaj about this elderly sadhu. And he said he knows the whole Bhagavatam. And Indraduna Maharaj was incredulous at first and said, literally, he knows the whole Bhagavatam? And so he said, what about such and such a verse? And the sadhu had just recited it. He tried a few more, enough to be convinced that wherever he picked, he knew the verses. Similarly, when we were in Varshana recently, there's a sadhu who lives there who, under his directions, every day they serve thousands of people prasadam. And he has a school there where young people grow up learning to read and write from the Bhagavatam. And they invited us for lunch. So we went there and we met one of the young women. I think she was about 18 or 20. And she spoke perfect English, but she travels around the world and speaks on Bhagavatam. And so for her formative years, she had just learned the Bhagavatam. So in a similar way, when we asked her about different chapters, yes, I know that one, I know this one, she knew the whole Bhagavatam and can speak on it, the commentaries and so forth. So a different era and also different environment. Whatever we're exposed to, whatever we concentrate our minds on, will assimilate that. And Prabhupada had an ambitious vision that he would bring Bhagavatam to the West and introduce it But he not only had to introduce it, he had to create an environment that people could actually sit in and hear. If you just invite people in to hear Bhagavatam and they have no culture of even Sattvagun or even Rajagun, they won't sit for very long. They won't be able to hear at all. I had gone to a memorial service for my friend Stan Wall, who I knew from my childhood, and then later he got cancer and passed away. And I went to his church back in my hometown, St. Stephen's Cathedral, and they asked me to give a eulogy, so I did. And afterwards, in the church, we went downstairs, and I was talking to many of the people who knew him, and other family members, and I ran into a teacher of mine from junior high school, actually from high school, and she had known that I had absconded in my junior year of high school and joined the Hare Krishna movement. So she was very curious about what had happened, what my life was like, and so forth, and wanted to know what philosophy we followed. So I started to explain it to her, and then she had a friend who came over, and it was a little surprising to me, but in the church they serve wine kind of in the recreation room. It's not a big thing to them. And in the memorial service, people were taking wine, and so as I was talking to her, she was appreciating the philosophy until her friend came over and gave her a glass of wine, and she started sipping it as I was talking to her. And with every sip, she got more obtuse. And it was noticeable that her comprehension of what I was saying was going down fast. And I could see before my eyes how the lower modes of material nature affect us. In the Gita, Krishna says, Tribir gunamayir bhaver ebe sarvamidam jagat mohitam nabijanati mamebhya paramavyayam. These three gunas bewilder everyone. In fact, this morning I was listening to a lecture of Prabhupada on the first verse of the Bhagavatam. Muhyanti surayaha means that even the devas are bewildered by this external energy of Krishna. You can be a judge, or you can be a heart doctor, or the best literary person in the world. You can be in Mensa, or you can be the smartest person on the earth, or in the universe for that matter, Brahma. But Brahma even says, Atapite deva padambuja dvaya prasada leshanugrahita evahi janati tattvam bhagavan mahimno nachanya eko picharam bachimban. Which means that even if you're the smartest person in the room or in the universe, unless you get mercy from Krishna, guess what? Us nomads take what we can get. Let's chant. I think it's the dupe artik, like it was last time. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, dear Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, if you so desire, please let us take away from this special place in our hearts the mood of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, surrendering to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, having the revelation that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the guide of his life. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone who agrees with this prayer, in whole or in part, please count down from 3 and in a moderate voice say, Gauranga. 1, 3, 2, 1. Gauranga.